All right, let's get right into it. So many startups these days are jumping on board with these sleek, modern finance solutions to handle their books. But here's the thing. What if that shiny promise of efficiency is actually hiding some really serious and, yeah, potentially very costly secrets? Today, we're going to pull back that curtain.
I mean, this is the big question for any founder, right? You absolutely need your finances to be this rock-solid foundation for growth, giving you the insights you need to make killer decisions. But so often, it just feels like you're stuck choosing between options that are, well, less than perfect. And that turns your biggest potential asset into your biggest headache.
And this really gets to the heart of the dilemma. As a startup, you need world-class financial know-how to scale up and impress investors. But you're probably running on a shoestring budget. So what have the traditional choices been? Well, on one side, you could try to build your own in-house team. But wow, is that expensive. It's also really hard to scale up and down, and it just adds another whole layer of management you have to deal with. Then, on the other side, you've got your traditional accountant. They're more affordable, for sure, but they're often just thinking about year-end taxes. They're not usually giving you that day-to-day strategic advice you desperately need. It feels like you have to make a huge compromise, one way or the other. But then, just when you think you're stuck, this new solution appears on the scene, and it promises to solve this exact problem. It's tech-savvy, it's scalable, and it looks like it gives you absolutely everything you need in one perfect little package.
You've probably heard of it. Finance as a Service, or FAAS for short. And the idea is pretty brilliant, you gotta admit. You basically outsource your entire finance department to one single provider. In theory, you get the best of both worlds. They use all this slick technology to handle everything from basic bookkeeping to high-level financial planning, all for what seems like a fraction of the cost of hiring your own team. And man, this sales pitch is just so compelling. They promise to scale right alongside you. They give you these amazing-looking dashboards with real-time data. They say you'll get access to CFO-level strategy, and they do it all at a price that almost sounds too good to be true. If you're a founder trying to watch every penny, this looks like the ultimate answer, the silver bullet you've been looking for. So you sign up. You're expecting these pristine, totally investor-ready financials that are going to unlock your next big funding round. But this is where we need to pump the brakes, because the reality can be way, way more complicated. So let's start with the actual quality of the accounting. A lot of these big VC-backed FAAS providers, especially the ones coming out of Silicon Valley, they love to promise that they'll deliver your financials according to US GAAP. That's the gold standard, generally accepted accounting principles. But what are you really getting? This quote right here gets to the absolute heart of the first major risk. It suggests some of these providers are using what's called a caricature of US GAAP, basically a twisted version of very complex accounting rules. And why would they do that? Well, the goal is pretty simple, to push your expenses into the future, which artificially pumps up how profitable your company looks on paper right now. It's a trick to make your startup look better to investors, but it can create a dangerously misleading picture of your company's health. And this table just lays it all out. For most early-stage companies, a simple adjusted cash basis, which is really just tracking money as it comes in and goes out with a few small adjustments, is totally fine. It's easy to understand, it's cheaper to do, and good investors trust it because it's transparent. The super complex FAAS GAAP, on the other hand, is often needlessly confusing. It costs more to maintain, and you know what? It can actually scare off the really smart investors who see those rosy profits and immediately think something's fishy. Okay, so the top-line numbers might be a little creative, but this second major risk is honestly even more dangerous, and it has to do with something where you absolutely need hyper-local knowledge. Your taxes. You see, a lot of these FAAs providers keep their prices low by operating from low-cost jurisdictions, and while their teams might be fantastic at data entry, they often have zero deep, specific expertise in your local tax laws, whether that's in a specific US state, a Canadian province, or dealing with complex EU VAT rules. This can lead to massive mistakes, like accidentally creating a permanent establishment, basically setting up a taxable presence in a new region without even realizing it. Or they can mess up transfer pricing, which can trigger nasty audits and huge penalties. So what's the move? You don't have to just throw the whole idea of FAAS out the window. The really smart approach is a hybrid model. Go ahead, let the FAAS provider handle all that high-volume stuff like data entry and invoicing, the things they're great at. But, and this is so critical, you keep a qualified local tax expert on your team to review everything and handle the final tax filings. This way, you get the best of both worlds, the cost-saving efficiency for the heavy lifting and the total peace of mind that comes from having a local pro handle the really high-stakes compliance stuff.
And this brings us to the people. These firms promise you access to top-tier expert talent, but who is actually doing the work on your account? And maybe more importantly, who's overseeing them?
Okay, check out this story. It's a perfect real-world example. A really sharp, experienced accountant was working with a company's Canadian office, and he noticed some weird things after they switched over to one of these big venture-backed FAAS providers. His spidey senses were tingling, so he decided to do a little digging on LinkedIn on the person in charge, the VP of Finance. And what he found, well, it raises some serious questions. After getting their accounting designation in India and working at a tiny firm, this person had exactly 2 months of experience at a Canadian CPA firm. After that, a couple of short stints as a controller, and then suddenly they're the VP of Finance for a global FAS provider with over 1,000 employees. Now you have to ask yourself, is that really the depth of experience you want to trust with your company's complex local tax compliance? So, how do you protect yourself from all this? It really all comes down to doing your homework and asking the right questions before you ever sign a contract. You have to do your own due diligence. So here's your playbook. You need to get really direct. Ask them point blank about their specific experience with your local state or provincial tax laws. Don't just talk to the slick salesperson. Find out who will actually be working on your account and check out their qualifications. Make them explain their accounting approach to you in plain English. And finally, maybe the most important step of all, always, always ask for and talk to references from companies that are just like yours in your specific location and your industry. Because at the end of the day, it all comes back to this. Finance as a service can be an amazing tool. It really can. But only if you choose the right partner and set up the relationship the right way. That promise of a cheap, all-in-one solution is so tempting, but if you don't vet them properly, you might just be trading one set of problems for a new, even scarier set. Because that choice you make is what determines if your finance function is the engine that drives your growth or the anchor that's holding you back.